Beloved soul, there may be someone in your life who genuinely cares about you, yet sometimes you may wonder why they do not always understand the way you think, the things you feel, or the reasons behind some of your choices. Perhaps you have noticed moments when their words seem different from their actions, or times when they seem close and understanding one day and uncertain the next. Before you assume that they do not care, consider something deeper. People can care about us and still struggle to understand us. Caring does not automatically mean knowing everything about another person's heart. Sometimes the people around us only see the outside of our lives while we are carrying an entire world of thoughts and emotions that they cannot see. You may have learned to stay quiet when something bothers you, to smile when you are confused, or to keep your dreams private because you are afraid that others will not understand them. The person who cares about you may sense that there is more happening inside you, but they may not know how to reach that part of you. This does not necessarily mean something is wrong. It may simply mean that understanding takes time, communication, patience, and trust. Maybe the one thing they struggle to understand is why you sometimes need space. They may see you becoming quiet and wonder whether they have done something wrong, while the truth may simply be that you need time to organize your thoughts. Some people process emotions by talking immediately, while others need silence before they know what they actually want to say. Neither way automatically means that someone cares more or less. People are different. What matters is learning how to communicate those differences respectfully. If you need space, you can explain that without making the other person feel rejected. If you need support, you can express that too. Sometimes a simple sentence such as, "I need a little time to think, but I still appreciate you," can prevent a great deal of unnecessary misunderstanding. You should not expect someone to read your mind, just as you cannot be expected to understand every thought they have without communication. Perhaps they struggle to understand how much you have changed. Maybe they remember an older version of you and still expect you to think the same way you once did. But people grow. Your interests can change. Your priorities can change. Your confidence can change. The way you respond to situations can change. Something that mattered deeply to you before may not matter in the same way today, and that does not mean you are being inconsistent. It may simply mean you are learning more about yourself. Sometimes the people who have known us for a long time need time to adjust to the person we are becoming. They may still be comparing the present version of you with the version they remember. Give them room to learn, but also give yourself permission to continue growing. You do not have to remain the same simply because someone became comfortable with an older version of you. There may also be something about your dreams that they do not fully understand. Perhaps you want to pursue something different from what they expected. Maybe you have a goal that seems unusual to them, or maybe you are interested in something they cannot immediately see the value in. When someone cares about you, they may sometimes express concern because they want you to be successful and safe, but concern does not always mean they understand your vision. Instead of turning the difference into an argument, explain what the goal means to you. Tell them why you care about it. Explain what you are learning and how you are approaching it responsibly. You do not need everyone to understand your dream immediately. Sometimes people understand after they see your consistency. Let your actions explain what words cannot. And perhaps the hardest thing for this person to understand is that you do not always need to be rescued. Maybe they see you struggling and immediately want to solve everything for you. Their intention may come from care, but sometimes what you really need is someone who listens. There is a difference between helping someone and taking control of their situation. If you are capable of handling something yourself, it can be meaningful to have someone simply stand beside you and encourage you. You can appreciate their concern while still saying, "I want to try this myself." Healthy support allows people to grow rather than making them dependent. The strongest connections often involve knowing when to help, when to listen, and when to give another person room to learn. Maybe this person also struggles to understand why you do not always believe in yourself. They may see qualities in you that you overlook. They may notice your patience, your creativity, your kindness, your ability to learn, or the way you continue trying after disappointment. While you are focused on everything you still need to improve, they may be noticing how far you have already come. Sometimes people who care about us see our potential before we can see it ourselves. Instead of immediately dismissing their encouragement, allow yourself to consider that they might be seeing something real. You do not have to believe you are perfect. You simply need to recognize that you have strengths alongside your weaknesses. There is another possibility worth considering. Maybe they struggle to understand your silence because they do not realize how much you are thinking. You may spend hours considering decisions, replaying conversations, or wondering about the future, while they simply see you being quiet. If this sounds familiar, remember that you do not have to explain every thought you have, but sharing important feelings can make relationships healthier. You can choose what you are comfortable sharing and when you are ready to share it. Trust develops gradually. You do not owe everyone access to your private thoughts, but with people who have earned your trust, honest communication can prevent unnecessary distance. The beautiful thing is that understanding does not have to happen all at once. Two people can learn about each other gradually. They can discover differences without turning those differences into rejection. They can ask questions instead of making assumptions. They can listen without immediately trying to defend themselves. They can admit when they misunderstood something. This is how genuine connection becomes stronger. It is not about finding someone who understands every single thing perfectly. It is about finding people who are willing to keep learning who you are. So if there is someone who genuinely cares about you but does not always understand you, do not immediately assume the relationship has no value. Look at their actions. Do they respect you? Do they listen when you explain yourself? Do they allow you to have boundaries? Do they encourage healthy growth? Do they apologize when they misunderstand you? Do they make an effort to know you better? These questions matter more than whether they understand everything immediately. Nobody has perfect understanding. What matters is whether there is mutual respect and a willingness to communicate. And perhaps the lesson for you is just as important: learn to understand yourself first. The more clearly you know your values, your needs, your goals, and your boundaries, the easier it becomes to communicate them to others. You cannot expect someone else to understand a part of you that you have never taken the time to understand yourself. Give yourself quiet moments. Think about what matters. Notice what makes you feel peaceful and what repeatedly drains your energy. Understand what kind of relationships help you grow. When you become clearer about yourself, you become better at explaining yourself to others. So remember this today: someone can care about you and still be learning how to understand you. Do not demand perfection from people, and do not demand perfection from yourself. Give healthy relationships room to grow through patience, honesty, respect, and communication. The person who truly cares may not understand everything today, but genuine care can create the willingness to keep learning tomorrow. Beloved soul, perhaps the person who cares about you has been trying to understand something that you rarely explain, and maybe that something is the way you protect your heart. They may notice that you do not always express what you are feeling, even when something matters deeply to you. They may see you becoming quiet instead of explaining what is happening inside your mind, and they may wonder why you sometimes step back when what you actually need is understanding. Perhaps you learned over time that not everyone knows how to handle your feelings carefully, so you became selective about what you share. Maybe you discovered that keeping certain thoughts private felt safer than explaining them to people who might misunderstand. But someone who genuinely cares about you may not know the history behind that behavior. They only see the silence. They see the distance. They see you thinking deeply before you speak, and they may wonder whether they are being pushed away. This is where communication can change everything. You do not have to reveal every private thought, but when someone has earned your trust, you can slowly help them understand why you sometimes need time, why you think carefully, and why opening your heart does not always happen quickly. The person who cares about you may not need a perfect explanation. They may simply need to know that your silence is not always rejection and that your need for space does not automatically mean that you have stopped caring. Maybe they are also struggling to understand why you are harder on yourself than you are on everyone else. They may notice that you forgive other people easily but criticize yourself for the smallest mistake. They may see you accomplish something meaningful and immediately hear you say that it was not enough. They may compliment a quality in you, but instead of accepting the kindness, you may immediately think about everything you still need to improve. If this sounds familiar, understand that sometimes the people who care about us can see our strengths more clearly than we can. You may be so focused on the parts of yourself that you want to change that you overlook the qualities that already make you valuable. You are allowed to improve without constantly putting yourself down. You can recognize your mistakes without turning them into a definition of your identity. You can admit that you have weaknesses while still acknowledging your strengths. Perhaps the person who cares about you is not confused by who you are at all. Perhaps they are simply confused by why you cannot see yourself through the same kind eyes they use when they look at you. There may be another thing they struggle to understand: why you sometimes choose a different path even when the easier option is right in front of you. Perhaps you have learned that what looks easy from the outside is not always right for your future. You may be willing to wait for something meaningful instead of accepting something simply because it is available. You may prefer a smaller circle of genuine people rather than a large group where you do not feel comfortable. You may choose to focus on your goals while others are focused on different things. Someone who cares about you may not immediately understand these choices because they may have imagined a different life for you. Their expectations might come from concern, affection, or simply from the version of you they remember. But you are allowed to grow beyond old expectations. You are allowed to discover what matters to you and make thoughtful choices based on your own values. The important thing is not to reject every opinion simply because it is different from yours. Listen, consider, and then decide carefully what truly fits your life. Maybe this person struggles to understand how deeply you notice things. You may remember small details that other people forget. You may notice changes in someone's tone, behavior, or mood. You may think about conversations long after they have ended because you are trying to understand what was really meant. This sensitivity can sometimes make you feel different from the people around you, especially when others move on quickly while your mind is still processing what happened. But being thoughtful does not mean something is wrong with you. It simply means you may experience certain situations more deeply. At the same time, learning not to overthink every small detail can help you protect your peace. Not every change in someone's mood is about you. Not every quiet moment contains a hidden meaning. Sometimes the healthiest thing you can do is ask instead of assuming. Clear communication can replace hours of unnecessary guessing. And perhaps the person who cares about you is struggling to understand why you do not always ask for help. They may see you carrying responsibilities quietly and wonder why you refuse to let anyone support you. Maybe you became independent because you learned early that you could not always depend on others. Maybe you are afraid that asking for help will make you look weak. But accepting appropriate support does not erase your independence. Sometimes strength means recognizing when you do not need to carry something alone. You can still be capable while allowing someone trustworthy to encourage you. You can still make your own decisions while listening to another person's perspective. You can still stand on your own while appreciating someone who chooses to stand beside you. The healthiest relationships are not built on one person constantly rescuing the other. They are built on mutual support, respect, and the freedom for both people to grow. Perhaps they are also trying to understand why you have become more careful about who receives your trust. They may wonder why you do not immediately open up, why you take time to observe people's actions, or why you prefer to let trust develop gradually. But trust does not have to be given instantly. It can be built through consistency. Someone can show through their actions that they respect your boundaries, listen to you, keep their promises, and treat you with kindness. You can take your time. There is nothing wrong with wanting to understand a person before allowing them deeper into your life. At the same time, do not let one disappointing experience convince you that nobody can be trusted. Let people show you who they are through consistent behavior, and give yourself permission to recognize healthy connection when it appears. The most beautiful part of all this is that understanding can grow. Maybe this person does not understand you completely today, but they may be willing to learn. They may ask questions. They may listen more carefully. They may begin noticing the things you never explained before. And you can do the same for them. Instead of expecting someone to understand everything automatically, create opportunities for honest conversation. Tell them what matters to you. Explain your perspective without attacking theirs. Ask them what they need as well. Sometimes the distance between two people is not caused by a lack of care but by a lack of communication. When both people are willing to listen, that distance can become smaller. So if there is someone who genuinely cares about you, remember that they may be learning you one chapter at a time. They may not understand every silence, every decision, every dream, or every change immediately, but their willingness to keep learning can be meaningful. You also have a responsibility to communicate rather than expecting them to understand everything without explanation. Give healthy relationships patience. Give yourself patience too. You are still becoming, and the people who care about you are also learning how to understand the person you are becoming. Maybe the one thing they are struggling to understand is not something negative about you at all. Maybe it is simply how much you have changed. They remember who you were, but they are slowly discovering who you are now. Let them discover you naturally. You do not need to prove your transformation through dramatic words. Let your actions show your growth. Let your choices demonstrate your values. Let your consistency explain what you cannot always put into words. The people who genuinely care will eventually notice. And remember, being understood is beautiful, but understanding yourself is just as important. Learn what you need. Learn what you value. Learn when you need space and when you need connection. Learn how to communicate your feelings respectfully. Learn how to accept encouragement without immediately doubting it. Learn how to receive care without believing that you owe someone your entire identity in return. You are allowed to have your own thoughts, dreams, boundaries, and direction while still caring deeply about the people around you. So take this message with you today. You do not need to become easier for everyone to understand. You need to become honest enough to communicate who you are to the people who genuinely care. The right kind of connection does not demand perfection. It creates room for patience, learning, mistakes, forgiveness, and growth. If someone truly cares about you, give them the opportunity to know the real you gradually, and give yourself permission to discover that person too. Beloved soul, perhaps the deepest thing this person is struggling to understand is not your silence, your dreams, or even your need for space, but the fact that you have learned to protect the parts of yourself that feel most vulnerable. They may see you as calm, independent, and capable, but they may not realize how much thought exists behind that calmness. You may have learned to think before speaking because you know that words can change relationships. You may have learned to observe before trusting because experience taught you that actions often reveal more than promises. You may have learned to keep moving even when you were uncertain because you did not want your difficult moments to become your entire identity. From the outside, this can sometimes look like distance, but inside, it may simply be your way of processing life. The person who cares about you may wonder why you do not immediately tell them what is wrong, but perhaps you are still learning how to explain feelings that are difficult even for you to understand. Give yourself permission to take that time, but remember that people who genuinely care cannot understand what you never communicate. You do not have to reveal everything, and you do not have to explain yourself perfectly, but when someone has earned your trust, allowing them to see a little more of your real thoughts can create a deeper kind of connection. Maybe they also struggle to understand why you sometimes appear strong when you are actually uncertain. They may look at you and think that you have everything under control because you continue completing your responsibilities, continuing your goals, and continuing your daily life. What they may not see is the internal conversation happening behind the scenes. You may question yourself, wonder whether you are making the right decisions, or worry about whether your future will unfold the way you hope. This does not make you weak. It makes you human. Strength does not mean never feeling uncertain. Strength can mean continuing to learn while uncertainty exists. You do not have to pretend that everything is easy simply because you want to appear capable. The people who genuinely care about you may actually feel closer to you when you allow yourself to be honest about not having every answer. Sometimes saying, "I am not sure what I feel yet," is more honest and more meaningful than pretending you know exactly what is happening. Inside you. Perhaps there is another reason they have difficulty understanding you. You may be someone who notices potential in people even when they cannot see it in themselves. You may forgive easily, encourage others, and believe that people can grow, but then become extremely critical of yourself when you make a mistake. The person who cares about you may wonder why you offer patience to everyone except yourself. They may see how quickly you encourage another person after a failure while you judge yourself harshly for the same thing. If this is part of your story, perhaps this is a moment to learn that kindness should also include you. You can hold yourself accountable without becoming cruel toward yourself. You can admit that you made a poor decision while still believing you can make a better one next time. You can recognize a weakness while continuing to value your strengths. The person who cares about you may be trying to understand why you cannot see the same good qualities in yourself that they can see so clearly. There may also be moments when they do not understand why you choose peace over proving a point. Perhaps you have reached a stage where you no longer want to argue about every disagreement. You may have discovered that being right is not always more important than preserving a healthy relationship or protecting your own peace. Some people may interpret your silence as weakness because they are accustomed to loud reactions, but choosing not to participate in unnecessary conflict can actually be a thoughtful decision. This does not mean you should ignore important problems or remain silent when your boundaries are being crossed. It means you can learn to choose your battles wisely. You can speak when something genuinely matters and step away when an argument is only creating more tension. Someone who cares about you may eventually understand that your calmness is not a lack of feeling. Sometimes it is evidence that you have learned to control your response instead of allowing every emotion to control you. Maybe they struggle to understand why your priorities have changed. There may have been a time when you cared deeply about attention, recognition, or being accepted by everyone, but now you are becoming more interested in peace, purpose, and meaningful relationships. You may no longer want to spend hours trying to impress people who do not genuinely care about your life. You may prefer a quiet evening with people you trust instead of being surrounded by people who make you feel like you have to perform. You may be more interested in learning something useful than showing people that you already know everything. These changes can surprise the people who knew an older version of you. They may wonder what happened to the person they remember, but perhaps nothing disappeared. You simply grew. You learned more about yourself, and with that knowledge came different priorities. You do not need to apologize for healthy growth simply because someone else needs time to adjust. Perhaps the person who cares about you is also struggling to understand how much you value consistency. You may not be impressed by dramatic promises if the actions behind those promises do not remain consistent. You may prefer someone who quietly shows respect over someone who makes impressive statements and then behaves differently. This can make you appear cautious, but perhaps you have learned that trust is built through repeated actions. You notice whether people keep their word, whether they respect boundaries, whether they listen, and whether they treat others with kindness even when nobody is watching. That does not mean you should expect perfection from everyone. People make mistakes. What matters is whether they take responsibility and make an effort to improve. If someone genuinely cares about you, they may gradually learn that consistency is one of the ways you recognize sincerity. And perhaps there is something about your future that they do not understand yet. You may have dreams that are difficult to explain because they are still developing. Maybe you do not even know exactly where you want to end up, but you know that you want something different from the life you have now. You may want to learn, create, explore, improve, or build something meaningful. When someone cares about you, they may sometimes worry because they cannot see the complete path. Their concern does not necessarily mean they want you to fail. They may simply be trying to understand something that you are still discovering yourself. Instead of feeling pressured to provide every answer, explain what you know today. Tell them what interests you, what you are learning, and what steps you are considering. You can invite them into the process without asking them to understand the entire destination. Maybe the most important thing you can remember is that genuine connection is not created by two people understanding everything perfectly. It is created when two people are willing to keep learning about each other. There will be misunderstandings. There will be moments when one person says something that the other interprets differently. There will be days when communication is difficult. What matters is what happens afterward. Do you both try to understand? Do you listen? Do you apologize when necessary? Do you respect each other's boundaries? Do you allow each other to grow? These qualities are far more meaningful than the idea of perfect understanding. Nobody can know every thought inside another person's mind. But someone can choose to keep asking, keep listening, and keep caring. So if you have been wondering why this person sometimes seems confused by you, consider giving them a little more context instead of assuming they should already know. You can say what you need. You can explain why something matters. You can tell them when you need time and when you would rather have someone beside you. You can also ask what they are experiencing. Perhaps they have their own fears and uncertainties that you have not considered. Understanding is a two-way road. When both people become curious rather than defensive, even difficult conversations can become opportunities for deeper connection. And remember that you are not required to become completely transparent with everyone. Your privacy is yours. Your boundaries are valid. You can decide what you want to share and when you want to share it. Trust should be earned through respectful behavior, not demanded. If someone truly cares about you, they should be able to respect your pace. At the same time, when someone has consistently shown that they are trustworthy, do not let fear automatically prevent you from allowing the relationship to become deeper. Sometimes the people who care about us are waiting patiently for us to realize that we do not have to carry everything alone. Perhaps the reason this message feels so personal is because you have been wondering whether someone truly sees you. Maybe they do not understand every part of you yet, but that does not mean they are not trying. Sometimes people need time to understand the layers of a person. You have experiences they did not live through. You have thoughts they never heard. You have dreams they have not yet witnessed. Give them the opportunity to learn. Let your actions, conversations, and consistency gradually reveal who you are. You do not need to explain your entire story in one conversation. The beautiful truth is that you are still becoming, and so are the people around you. Nobody has finished learning. Nobody has perfect communication. Nobody understands another person completely. What matters is whether there is enough respect and care to keep trying. If someone is willing to listen, learn, and respect your boundaries, that willingness can be more meaningful than immediate understanding. And if you are willing to do the same for them, you can create a relationship where both people feel seen without needing to be identical. So carry this thought with you: the person who truly cares may not understand every part of you today, but genuine connection gives both of you the opportunity to understand each other more deeply tomorrow. You do not need to hide yourself, and you do not need to explain yourself perfectly. Be honest where you feel safe, patient where understanding takes time, and clear about the boundaries that matter to you. Let people learn you through consistency rather than expecting them to know everything instantly. Perhaps one day they will look back and realize that what they once misunderstood was actually one of the most meaningful parts of who you are. They may understand why you needed space, why you protected your dreams, why you moved carefully, why you valued consistency, and why you sometimes became quiet when you were carrying too much. And you may also realize that understanding them required the same patience. That is what makes genuine connection beautiful: two imperfect people learning, listening, growing, and becoming more thoughtful toward each other. Beloved soul, as we come to the final part of this message, take a quiet moment and think about what it really means to be understood. Perhaps you have spent a long time wondering whether someone truly sees the person you are beneath your quiet moments, your changing moods, your dreams, your uncertainty, and the parts of yourself that you do not easily share. Maybe there is someone who cares about you deeply, yet there are moments when you feel that they still do not completely understand what is happening inside your heart. They may notice that you sometimes become quiet when you have too many thoughts, that you need time before making important decisions, that you do not always explain yourself immediately, or that you can appear strong even when you are still trying to figure things out. They may wonder why you sometimes hold back when they want you to open up, why you do not always accept their help, or why you continue carrying certain dreams even when the path toward them is uncertain. But perhaps they are slowly discovering that there is much more to you than what they can see from the outside. You have experiences they did not experience, thoughts they have never heard, and hopes that may still be developing. Nobody can understand another person completely in one moment. Understanding grows through time, patience, honest conversations, and the willingness to listen without immediately judging. If this person truly cares about you, they may not have every answer yet, but their willingness to keep learning about you can be more meaningful than instant understanding. Maybe the thing they struggle to understand most is why you do not always show how much you care. You may feel deeply but express yourself quietly. You may remember small details, think about someone's feelings, or quietly wish the best for them without always saying everything out loud. Some people express care through words, while others express it through actions, attention, consistency, or simply being present when it matters. If your way of caring is different from theirs, misunderstandings can happen easily. They may wonder why you did not say something, while you may believe that your actions already explained it. They may want reassurance through conversation, while you may naturally show affection through support or thoughtful behavior. Neither approach automatically means that one person cares more. It may simply mean that you communicate care differently. This is why honest communication matters. You can tell someone, "I may not always express myself the way you do, but that does not mean I do not care." A simple explanation can sometimes remove a misunderstanding that has been growing quietly for a long time. You should not have to perform emotions in a way that feels unnatural to you, but learning how another person receives care can help you communicate more effectively. Perhaps they also struggle to understand why you need time before trusting someone completely. Maybe they believe that if you care about them, you should immediately tell them everything, but trust does not work that way. Trust grows through repeated experiences. It grows when someone consistently respects your boundaries, listens to you, keeps their promises, and treats your feelings with care. You are allowed to take your time. You are allowed to observe someone's actions before deciding how much of yourself you want to share. At the same time, remember that protecting yourself should not mean closing every door permanently. If someone has shown through their behavior that they are trustworthy, allow the relationship to develop naturally. You do not have to reveal your entire heart in one conversation. You can share one thought, then another, and gradually discover whether the other person knows how to handle what you share. Healthy connection is not built through pressure. It is built through mutual respect, patience, and consistency. Maybe they struggle to understand why you have become more independent. Perhaps they remember a time when you needed more guidance or reassurance, and now they see you making more decisions for yourself. They may interpret your independence as distance, but independence does not mean that you no longer care about anyone. It simply means that you are learning how to take responsibility for your own choices. You can value someone's opinion without allowing that opinion to make every decision for you. You can appreciate someone's support without becoming dependent on their approval. You can listen to advice and still think carefully before choosing your own direction. Growing into yourself can sometimes surprise the people who have known you for a long time because they are adjusting to a version of you they have not seen before. Give them time, but do not stop growing simply because someone is more comfortable with the person you used to be. There may also be something they struggle to understand about your dreams. Perhaps you have a goal that feels important to you even though other people do not immediately see why. Maybe you want to learn something, create something, improve yourself, explore a new interest, or build a future that looks different from what others expected. Someone who cares about you may ask questions because they want to know whether you have thought things through. Try not to interpret every question as doubt. Sometimes people ask questions because they are trying to understand your vision. Explain what the goal means to you. Tell them what you are learning. Share the practical steps you are considering. You do not need everyone to agree with every dream you have, but respectful conversation can help them see why it matters to you. And remember, your dreams are allowed to evolve. You can change your mind when you learn something new. You can adjust your plans without considering yourself a failure. Growing means discovering more about yourself, and sometimes discovery changes the direction you thought you would take. Maybe the person who cares about you is struggling to understand why you sometimes forgive people who have disappointed you. They may wonder why you continue believing that people can change. Perhaps you naturally see potential in others and prefer to give people another opportunity when they make mistakes. That can be a beautiful quality when balanced with healthy boundaries, but remember that forgiveness does not require you to ignore repeated harmful behavior or remain in situations that are unhealthy. You can forgive someone and still choose distance. You can wish someone well without allowing them unlimited access to your life. You can believe that people can grow while also paying attention to their actions. The person who cares about you may be trying to protect you because they see something you may be overlooking. Listen to their perspective, but also use your own judgment. Healthy care should encourage thoughtful choices rather than control. Perhaps they are also struggling to understand why you sometimes become distant when you are overwhelmed. When there is too much happening at once, you may retreat into your own thoughts because you need time to process everything. From the outside, that can look like rejection, but inside, you may simply be trying to regain balance. If you know that this is something you do, consider communicating it before the silence becomes confusing. You can say, "I need some time to think, but I am not trying to push you away." That small explanation can create reassurance without requiring you to discuss everything immediately. People who care about you may be more willing to give you space when they understand what the space means. And you may also learn that you do not always have to disappear completely when you are overwhelmed. Sometimes a simple message or honest sentence can keep a connection strong while you take the time you need. There is another possibility. Perhaps they struggle to understand how deeply you think about the future. You may imagine possibilities, consider different outcomes, and spend time thinking about decisions that other people make quickly. This can make you appear hesitant, but sometimes careful thinking is simply part of your personality. You may want to understand the consequences before moving forward. That can be a strength when balanced with the ability to eventually act. Do not let overthinking keep you permanently stuck, but do not allow other people's impatience to force you into decisions you are not ready to make either. Take reasonable time, gather information, seek advice when necessary, and then make the best decision you can with what you know. The person who cares about you may eventually learn that your carefulness is not indecision for its own sake. It is your way of trying to make responsible choices. And perhaps what they are truly struggling to understand is how much you have grown without realizing it yourself. You may still see yourself through the eyes of your past. You remember the mistakes, embarrassing moments, disappointments, and times when you were unsure of yourself. But the person watching you now may notice something different. They may see that you are more thoughtful than before. They may see that you handle certain situations with greater patience. They may see that you are learning to communicate better, make better choices, and recover more quickly from disappointment. Sometimes the people around us notice our growth before we do. If someone genuinely cares about you and tells you that they see good qualities in you, do not automatically reject their words. You do not have to believe you are perfect. Simply allow yourself to consider that their perspective might contain something you have been unable to recognize in yourself. So perhaps the answer is not to become easier for everyone to understand. Perhaps the answer is to become more honest about who you are while remaining willing to understand others too. You do not need to explain every private thought. You do not need to reveal every dream. You do not need to change your personality so that everyone feels comfortable. But when someone has earned your trust and genuinely cares about you, give them a chance to know you. Tell them what matters. Explain what you need. Listen to what they need. Ask questions when something feels unclear instead of immediately assuming the worst. When misunderstandings happen, return to the conversation when you are calm. Sometimes one honest conversation can accomplish more than weeks of silent guessing. And remember, being cared for does not mean being perfectly understood every moment. Real relationships contain learning. People misunderstand each other sometimes. They interpret words differently. They remember situations differently. They have different expectations. The goal is not to eliminate every misunderstanding. The goal is to create enough trust that misunderstandings can be repaired. If someone is willing to listen, acknowledge your perspective, and make an effort to do better, that matters. And you can offer that same patience in return. Connection becomes deeper when both people realize that understanding is something they build together rather than something they automatically possess. Maybe this person will never understand every part of you, and that is okay. There are parts of yourself that even you are still discovering. You are still learning what you value, what you want, what makes you comfortable, what challenges you, and what kind of future you want to create. Expecting another person to understand you perfectly would be unrealistic. What you can hope for is respect, patience, honesty, and a willingness to keep learning. Those qualities create room for people to grow together without demanding perfection from either side. So as you leave this message, remember this simple truth: someone can truly care about you and still need time to understand you. Their confusion does not automatically mean a lack of care, and your need for privacy does not automatically mean a lack of connection. Give healthy relationships room to develop naturally. Communicate when you can. Listen when they speak. Protect your boundaries. Accept appropriate support. Continue becoming the person you want to be. And if someone genuinely cares about you, allow their actions over time to show you whether they are willing to understand you rather than judging the entire relationship by one misunderstood moment. Perhaps one day the thing they struggle to understand today will become one of the things they appreciate most about you. They may eventually realize why you needed time, why you thought carefully, why you protected certain dreams, why you valued consistency, and why you sometimes became quiet when your mind was full. And you may discover that understanding another person required the same patience from you. That is the beauty of genuine connection. It is not about two perfect people who automatically understand everything. It is about two people who are willing to listen, learn, communicate, respect boundaries, and keep growing. Take one final moment for yourself and ask, Am I allowing the people who genuinely care about me to know who I really am? If the answer is no, you do not need to change everything today. Start with one honest conversation. Share one thought. Express one feeling. Tell someone that you appreciate them. Or simply let them know when you need a little space. Small acts of honesty can create bridges where silence once created distance. And if the answer is yes, continue nurturing those connections with patience and gratitude. People who care about us are valuable, and meaningful relationships deserve effort from both sides. You are not too complicated to understand. You are not required to become smaller so someone else can understand you more easily. You are a person who is still learning, growing, changing, and discovering who you are. The right kind of connection will make room for that growth. It will not demand that you remain frozen in an old version of yourself. It will allow you to become wiser, more confident, and more honest while still being respected for who you are today. So carry this message into your next conversation, your next friendship, your next meaningful connection, and your next chapter. Be honest without being harsh, protect your boundaries without closing your heart, accept care without losing your independence, and give understanding as freely as you hope to receive it. You may not always be understood immediately, but when there is genuine respect and patience, understanding can grow with time. And perhaps that is the beautiful ending to this message. You do not need everyone to understand you. You need to understand yourself, communicate honestly with the people you trust, and recognize the people who make a sincere effort to know you. Let those relationships grow naturally. Let yourself grow naturally too. There is nothing wrong with being a work in progress. In fact, that may be one of the most beautiful things about being human. If this message touched your heart, like this video and share it with someone who has genuinely tried to understand you. Subscribe for more uplifting messages, emotional reflections, faith-inspired encouragement, and meaningful life lessons.